Okay, now we want to talk about the landforms that are created by groundwater. So far we've mentioned landforms that are created by mass wasting. We've talked about landforms created by rivers, coastal processes, and now we want to talk about the landforms that are created by groundwater. So first is going to be a spring. So a spring is going to be where water comes to the surface. And so here are 4 examples of processes that would cause water to come to the surface, so be familiar with all 4 of them. Okay, and the difference between a spring and an artesian well is that with an artesian well, the water is actually going to come above the Earth's surface. So with the spring, it just comes to the Earth's surface, but with the artesian well, it shoots up out of the ground. So be able to explain what causes water to do that. So what is the cause of an artesian well? Okay, then you've got hot springs and geysers. And so the principle behind the geyser is going to be that water under pressure is more difficult to boil. So the pressure pushing down on the water makes it more difficult for that water to boil. So in the case of a geyser, you have water that's under the ground, and then the pressure of the water that's on top of that water keeps that water down here from boiling until it superheats. And when it superheats, it gets so hot it starts to boil, and then when it boils, it forces all this water above it out of the ground, and then that water comes shooting up out of the ground in the form of a geyser. And then after it erupts, then the water drains back into the caverns, and then the process begins all over again. Okay, a lot of questions about caves on this exam. So karst topography. So you should know, how does a cave form? Okay, you should know that caves tend to form under the water table. So that if you've got, you need to have an area where there is a impermeable layer, which we're going to call the cap rock. So that normally keeps any water from getting down to here. But there's going to be a crack in it somewhere. So because of an earthquake, there's going to be a crack, and so water is going to be able to get into this limestone that's down here. Okay, and then it's going to make a water table underneath it. So here's your limestone. Here's the level of the water. And so it's going to start to dissolve away the calcium carbonate, and it's going to start to make a cave. Okay, then for some reason, the water table drops. So that could be because of a drought. It could be because the land was lifted up. But one way or another, the water table, let's say now, is down here. So let's get rid of this water table. Okay, now water can still drip into the cave, and it will make stalactites, and it's going to make stalagmites inside the cave. So know the process by which you make a cave. Okay, you should also know about pillars and flowstone, so some of the other features that you find inside of a cave. Okay, then how do you know that there is limestone underneath the ground? So if you're looking down from the air, what evidence is there that there is caves underneath the ground? So things that you look for is sinkholes. Sinkholes are going to be areas where the ground has caved in and the material is going directly into the groundwater and the cave that is below. Another thing is solution valleys. So these are just definitions that you should know for the exam. Okay, and okay, so another example would be a sinking stream. So a river that's flowing, and then all of a sudden it just disappears. And that's because the water is going under the ground, and it can reappear somewhere else as a spring. And so the river can continue somewhere else. Okay, we already mentioned sinkholes, and we already mentioned a solution valley. So where the cave collapses, that's going to be a sinkhole. So here, let's say that you got your cave right here, and then it collapses into that cave. That's your sinkhole. But now let's say that there's another cave over here, and it also collapses. So what can happen is these things can join together, and you can end up with a solution valley. Okay, let's take a break, and when we come back, we will talk about what are some hazards associated with groundwater and what are some solutions.